Hey, how's it going? Name's Mike. I'll be showing you how to change a interior light. One of the first things that we did was turn off the power. We're not going to go through that. Most people should know where their breaker panel is and how to identify which breaker to change. But I will say they're not always properly marked. This one here was actually connected to our dishwasher breaker. But also when I remove the light, I'm going to test for voltage just to double check. So some of the tools you'll probably need are Phillips head, flat tip, linesman pliers or electrician's pliers, and some wire strippers. I got a multimeter here to test the voltage once I get the light down. I'm not going to wear safety goggles, but I just threw that in there for those of you that like to be extra safe. Here's the light bulbs we're going to use. The light fixture we're going to be installing along with the glass for the light. So that being said, I'm just going to hop up here and take down this light and see what we got to work with after that. You know, sometimes these get a little tight. You might need to grab a little rag to give you some grip or something, but we'll just apply extra pressure and unscrew it till it comes down, holding on to the light so it doesn't fall. Probably going to have some dead bugs and cobwebs in here. It's pretty normal. Set that down. Go ahead and remove these lights. Alright. Alright, so since we're changing the entire light fixture out, pretty much got to take down everything here. Get the centerpiece that goes to the former light shade. I don't know what that's called. And we got a couple Phillips head screws. I don't know if you can see in between there where the light bulbs would go, so I'm going to take those down and it should access the wiring. Actually, with this one, you don't have to completely take out the screws. You can just loosen it a little bit and the plate here will rotate. Like so. And it should come down, exposing the wires. So, you got your wires here. Of course, this is going to be your ground, but I'm just going to disconnect these wires and then test them. And I'm testing the wires coming from the house here, not the ones that are down here. And there's no voltage, so we're good. Check again. Nothing. Do the ground here, drop the plate. Alright, one of the things I didn't mention was what each of the color wires actually were besides the ground. So your ground obviously is going to ground to prevent Alright, you ready? Your white's your neutral. So it's only going to be active with the, say, your switch being turned on or something like that. And then your black is always hot. So say if I hadn't turned off the breaker, I could do this stuff with the switch being turned off, but if I touch this one, I get a little zap. Um, and normally I actually don't turn off the power, and I always get shocked. So, all right. So now what I'm gonna do, or actually explain, is this particular light fixture. You can adjust the length that you want the light. So if you want it to hang farther down, you know, you have all this slack, or you pull the wire like so to your desired height. There's also, actually, there's this here I had to unscrew to be able to maneuver the cordage. So what we also did was we kind of did a little cheat. I held it here, she said where she wanted it, and we made a little mark on it. So when I'm hanging it, I know how far down. I'm also going to be cutting a lot of this excess off, because it's not going to fit up into the light, and it'll just make it easier when I'm trying to put everything back up. So with this, you know, from the existing light fixture, you had your 2 screws here. I have to remove them. I already removed one because these are pretty long, and it's for video purposes kind of time consuming. You could use a little power drill or something, but I tend to just use the old school handheld drivers and whatnot. Now my hand's not gripping. This particular screw here would actually take either Phillips or a flathead. Now the light fixture itself has a little bracket that needs to go up there so you can mount this housing to it. It's got 2 little Phillips screws. Undo those. Probably don't want to hold it over the garbage disposal. So one of the things that's important is to leave it running through here. There's been times where I've installed something and realized I didn't do that, had to undo it. So just keep it there. Grab your screws that were originally there. Pull this ground wire out of my way. And what I'm basically going to do is just sit this here, because I still got to cut the slack off this wire. So I'm just going to start it to where it'll hang, and I can still access everything. Alright, so this one's marked, so you could potentially tell that this was your hot and this would be your neutral, but really these wires don't matter initially. It's just later on that they will. So let's see, like I said, I'm going to end up cutting off this, find my marks, which are here. Cut it right about here maybe. But what I'm going to do first is remove the sheath, because I'll keep that little black wire on there for the identification purposes, and all I'm doing with this linesman is just making little cuts around it to separate it. All right. Careful not to, if you don't want to cut through your wires, that you're only making small cuts into it. Alright, so I'm just going to use the wire strippers here to take about a 1/2 inch or so off of the wire sheathing. Put a little twist in these. One of the things I dislike is when you're trying to mate these wires to the household wires. You got your solid copper wires and then you have these, and so you can't really twist them together. So you'll usually run into some problems with that. Also, be careful when you're cutting the sheathing. You didn't see it on video, but as I was trying to cut the sheathing off, I cut into the wires, and so I had to keep shortening my section because I didn't want to have any exposed wires through the sheathing there. So like I said, you can put the little black piece on there if you want to identify what type of wire this is, but it doesn't really matter. But I'll just put it there for GP, I guess. Alright, so like I said, I'm going to run this back through the hole here. Give myself some slack. And then I'm just going to reconnect these wires. The bag's probably going to come with some wires, or you can just reuse the existing ones. You know, I like to try and get this here and wrap it around a little bit. I don't know if you can see that. But like I said, generally when you're trying to get these two to mate up, this wire wants to come off or something, but this should twist it on and keep it on there okay. And I'm going all the way up to where the sheathing was, just to avoid any exposure of the wires. Then going to connect my grounds. I think I'm gonna actually run this ground through this hole as well. Probably really don't have to, but then I'm just gonna wrap that around in a bunch. You could cut this off if you wanted to. Alright, so those should all be pretty good. Just shove those back up in there. Let's see, we're gonna put Phillips, tighten these screws up. This is probably where a little electric drill or something speed this process up. Alright, one of the other things I'm going to do before I get too carried away and have everything to near completion status is I'm going to go ahead and put a bulb in here just to make sure, turn the breaker back on, just make sure everything's working before, like I said, I get everything screwed in here and have to take it all back down. So it's working, and so now I'm going to go back out, turn the breaker off, and finish this up. So we left off where I tested the light bulb and it was working, so now I'm going to continue with this here. So like, as you can see, we made some marks. This was the first one. We're like, no, that's too high, so we made another one. This is where I'm going to raise this up to, right? And then I'm going to put this here so it doesn't move. should be good. And so, as you can see, I've got some excess wire here. You don't really have a whole lot of room in here, but you could potentially shove some more of this in there. But all I'm going to do is actually kind of roll that up like so and place it up here. Rotate this to where it's going to line up to the screw hole, or that may not be the proper terminology. I can't see, so I'm getting a little assistance on where I need to rotate it. Probably would have been better if I already had a screwdriver in my hand. So, like I said, I'm just going to kind of get this one started. That way I can get to the other side, and if it would misalign, I still have a little bit of room to maneuver the plate, as you can see here. For this one, I'll climb it myself. Yeah, so that's off a little bit. Just hold that there. This is probably a point in which I would normally drop the screw down into the garbage disposal because I didn't put a cover there, even though I already mentioned that that's likely to happen, but I'm lucky this time. And with this, you don't have to cinch it down real tight or anything, just snug. It should. There we go. And you may have, a little gap or something, but just press on that there. That's probably the part that this screwed into. Maybe had a little bit of play to it. It should be all right. If anything, I'll come back to it later and adjust it to make that stay flush to the ceiling. But all right, so here on this fixture, you have a little nut. So I'm gonna unscrew that. Grab my glass cover. Put that up on there. It's probably a little easier with someone with smaller hands, but and you want to make sure you're not cross-threading it. So if you're like trying to put this on and you're getting some resistance, just start over, because it shouldn't fight you. It should just go on there pretty smooth. And you might want to take a look at your light and make sure it doesn't look all cockeyed or something as you finish tightening it up. That should be good. Let that hang like so. We went with these GE LED lights. You see the lumens here. The higher the number, the brighter it is. But the main thing is that these are, supposed to be cost effective compared to old light bulbs. So as far as the watts, it's a 60 watt replacement. So that means the light fixture is rated for 60 watts, but the light itself is only going to use 7 watts. So you're technically saving on electricity. And we also went with these due to their design. Kind of look like like your old-timey light bulbs somewhat, which you can go to any of the hardware stores, probably any convenience store, and find some of those. They got different, yes, whatever you like. We saw a couple different light fixtures and we're like, if we buy this component and this separate, we can actually get it cheaper and it still be what we wanted. So we went that route. So now I'm gonna turn the breaker on. It should work fine. See how bright this thing is. All right, so I turned the breaker on. I probably didn't have to turn it off to begin with, but you know, just I guess for video purposes, you know, I don't want to be responsible for someone getting shocked because they listen to me. So I think there's a disclaimer. I'm not an electrician. I just like to do things myself. And we have light, and that's pretty bright. So now when you do dishes, you can see all your dirty dishes. Alright, that probably concludes the video besides cleanup, which isn't much. Just put the tools up, stuff like that. So